All right, so welcome to episode 9 of the ATRL Charts podcast. I'm Alexander.
And I am you, Mitch. Aaron from ATRL. Unfortunately, our sick comrade Hair 55 cannot be with us tonight, but I'm sure he's watching or listening and doing all that good stuff from his sick bed. So yeah.
Yeah, when we get to double digits, he'll probably be back. So it'll surely be exciting. But for now, um, we've got a new Hot 100 to talk about, and we're planning from now on, just as a kind of public service announcement, to try to put these on Mondays from now on, because we have that new material to cover and that new Hot 100 data to discuss. Previously, we've been recording a lot on the weekends, which gives us plenty of opportunity to speculate for the next weeks to come, but we don't have a lot of up-to-date data like we can do on Monday nights. So from now on, we'll try to do these. We'll record these on Monday. Hopefully, get them out either the same night or the next night, depending on if there's any technical issues, which there have been plentiful technical issues in the past. And so that's just in general. We'll record on Mondays from now on. And we'll now get to the actual content of the podcast. So obviously, like I mentioned, new Hot 100 out today, and the story is one of the big stories is that X's and O's by Al King has hit the top 10.
Very, very shocked at this. This was to me, it was kind of a sleeper hit because it was one of those songs that I really didn't see being a big of a hit as it is now, but I guess the public reception has been very, very well, and it's crossed over from alternative radio, where I believe it peaked somewhere in the top 10 on that format, which is pretty good. And I think with this crossing over, it has breathe a new life on pop radio, adult pop radio. Not really sure about rhythmic. I haven't really checked the stats there. I'm almost sure it's not getting any airplay there, or it's not in
It is. I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's in the top 100 of all stations and recurrence. It's not in the top 50 of published. It's getting around 1,400,000 spins from Rhythmic. So not much, but still kind of notable for an alternative song because it's an alternative song.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what this song is, I think what's fueling the popularity of this song is that right now we're in the transition period between we just left summer and now we're now in the fall and we're about to transition into winter. So I think a lot of playlists on radio are shifting around, and this is finally getting its time to shine, along with other hits that we've discussed in other podcasts. So very, very excited to see how far this song will actually go, and to see what holds in store for this song. So I'm excited as a chart watcher to see what the future is.
And I remember predicting many podcasts ago, we were talking about Renegades along with this song as potential alternative crossovers for this time of year. And I originally thought that Renegades would be bigger. I was wrong, clearly. X's and O's turned out to be the bigger hit overall. It's got a lot of untapped potential on streaming, where it's only in the it's been bouncing around the 30s on Spotify, and the official video isn't doing great either, which it's kind of expected for its genre. Just like Shut Up and Dance, it's got a lot of room to grow there. And on radio, it's performing similarly to past alternative crossovers in that it's gone number 1 on HAC. It's gone top 10 on pop radio, probably going further. It's at number 9 right now. And just looking at the chart, it should pass What Do You Mean in 2 days, and then The Hills, so it should make number 7 at least. And then if it can last, if it can keep gaining for a while, could actually make it the top 5 as Wildest Dreams falls and On My Mind falls. So this song could be a big hit on pop radio, which I kind of expected Renegades to steal the show on pop radio with it being so airplay friendly, but it turns out that listeners actually, for some reason, whatever reason, I don't know why, we're not into Renegades, and the song's dropping on pop radio now, and it got bad call out, and it's not selling, any better than it was in September. Um, so clearly, I had the perception of listeners, my perception of pop radio listeners was wrong. This song is selling very well. Just want to point out that it has survived an onslaught of new releases: Adele, Justin Bieber, One Direction, all these voice performances, the CMA's boosts, and it's selling. It's at number 6 on iTunes, so it's selling very well. It's receiving very strong support from the music buying demographic.
Yeah, and that's another good sign to point out that is, this song is not just an airplay driven hit. It's actually, being sought out by music buyers who normally would download from iTunes, Amazon, or whatever. Um, and for a new artist or a relatively new artist who's just breaking out with their huge first single, that's a pretty big deal. And because prior to this, I didn't know who El King was until I started, perusing the chart section and looking people posting about El King X's and O's. I'm like, oh, okay, new artist, doing really, really well. And I remember the song rising really, really well towards the later end of the summer. So I'm just pretty happy that this song actually turned out to be a hit, because I know a lot of people when ATRL were rooting for this song and still are rooting for this song. And it's in, like you said, it's in a really good position because it's still selling well relative to the amount of airplay that it has. But going further, it could be limited by streaming, which we kind of see this happens with a lot of alternative to pop crossovers. They're not that strong in the streaming department, which I really don't know why. I don't know why that could be explained, but nonetheless, it's still a hit. I mean, despite whatever streaming numbers it does have, it's definitely a hit in our books and a hit on billboards. That
So very impressive for El King. A slow build-up, like we see with a lot of these alternative crossovers that move from alternative. It's a three-step process, really. You do well on alternative, you move to HAC, and then you move to pop and the mainstream. And X's and O's has not been promoted, really. As far as I know, there haven't been any major live television performances. The song hasn't been featured in any advertising campaigns or anything like that. So it's been an organic rise, which is reminiscent for me of Bastille's Pompeii. Two winners ago, where you had a song that originally did very well on alternative, crossed over to HAC, crossed over to pop, very organic again, and ended up peaking number 4 on the Hot 100. Now I don't think X's and O's is going to get that high. It actually, number 10 might actually end up being its peak, depending on how it fares over the next few weeks on pop radio and on on streaming, if it can grow on streaming at all. So I think personally the song will peak in the 8 to 10 range, if not number 10, right now this week. That this will be its peak.
Yeah, it definitely depends on whatever promo is lined up for the song, because without promo and by it being a brand new artist, it doesn't really have that reach that it could potentially have. I know the AMAs are this Sunday, and I'm pretty sure she's not scheduled to perform there. But with the amount of radio airplay that is still building, it could potentially continue to rise up to Hot 100. But again, the limiting factor is streaming, and the fact that it could peak on sales pretty early. I don't know, considering sales are very, very I mean, there's really no word to say, but sales are in the pits, and it could peak in sales at any moment, because normally a few years ago airplay and sales would rise simultaneously with each other. Now we're seeing a pattern where sales will rise, they'll stall, but then airplay will continue to rise above that, and then the sales will just stall and start to peak out and start to diminish or wane itself out because of the climate. And a lot of people are turning to streaming to consume songs, which I mean we've seen pretty much this whole year and leading up to 2015. So, I think X's and O's still has some life left in it. Will it hit top five? It's a possibility from my standpoint, um, but I mean, it's not a huge chance that it'll do that based on based on what we have right now. But yeah, it's still on the rise.
And speaking of the top five, a surprise today is as Shawn Mendes Stitches hurdles back into the top five. It was previously outside of the region at number six last week. And this was surprising. It actually either it gained a lot more streams than we expected, or Justin Bieber's "What Do You Mean" finally lost some steam on that metric. But Stitches is back in the top five. It's number one on pop radio, although it has peaked there. And this song has really established him as a breakout act of the year, going from a social media personality to a musician with potential to grow further in 2016. And I have to say, I'm impressed by the streaming for the song. It's been in the Spotify top 10 for several months, probably, pretty much continuously. Knocked out for a few days with the album releases recently, but still, I wonder what it was that got him to break out with this song, rather than he had tried to break out in the past. He had been promoted with Something Big and Life at the Party. But this was the one that resonated with, clearly, this was the one that resonated with the public past his core demographic, because it's number 6 on HAC. And it's actually number 49 on AC, so it's charting there. So all in all, it's a big step for him. It's another, we talk about X's and O's being impressive. Stitches is also a very impressive breakout.
Yeah, it's very impressive, and it's great that he was able to go past his demographic because, with his past singles, Something Big and Life of the Party, I mean, they probably appealed to the people that made him who he was today, but it wasn't something that was going to necessarily get him recognition past that. And Stitches being, something that's out of his normality compared to the last two singles was a good choice for him. And I think we talked about this in a previous podcast. It's ballads normally from artists either do really well or they don't. I'm not saying that this is a ballad, but this is something that's a step down from or a step up from what he's previously released with Something Big and Life of the Party. And just going by the listeners, and they're just going by the call out scores of what we've seen in the threads.
That's fantastic.
People love the song. People love the song. So, not only do radio listeners love the song, people are buying it and people are streaming it. So this is something that has turned into something good for him. Conversely, on the album sales side, I'm not sure if they're doing really well compared to like how they should be doing, because I know this song is a hit. So normally album sales are driven by hit songs, and I haven't checked out the latest numbers, but I think the album sales are not really that great. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, he's pretty much a new artist who's going to have to build and continue to build his fan base. Like, I think Stitches has done a really, really good job with, branching himself out from, the teen age, like, demographic that he has, and maybe tapped into some of the young adult fans that he may have gained with this song, and especially with him charting on adult pop radio. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to start any fan wars or anything, but prior to this, I don't think any of his songs from his first album second album or last album has actually charted this high on adult pop radio. So for Shawn Mendes to actually start this young and chart this high on adult pop, to me, it seems like he's tapping more into that into the young adult crowd more than what Justin Bieber was doing at his age. So I think this is setting up Shawn Mendes for a good position as he grows older because he's only 17. This is very, very young. So he has ample amount of time to grow, gain more fans, and to get more support and more success with the rest of his album and maybe blah 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 subsequent singles as they come along.
Yeah, and he's a kid too, barely older than me. And I'm here just talking about his success, which is kind of interesting. And I think the way, and obviously, I think the reason that Bieber wasn't willing to, or actually, you know what? I won't say that. I won't phrase it that way. It wasn't that Bieber wasn't necessarily willing to put out, songs that might have stepped out of his comfort zone and appealed to the adult pop crowd, something more stripped back, something that might have more authenticity than his other tracks that he released back in 2012, like Beauty and a Beat or Boyfriend, which were both they utilized production that was very of the time. If you listen to those two songs now, I would argue that they sound very dated, especially As Long As You Love Me, which I didn't, which is another one of those songs that he put out back then that hopped on that kind of dubstep breakdown trend that was a thing for like 6 or 12 months back then. We saw it with I Knew You Were Trouble. But if you listen to that kind of song now, it sounds very dated. And I think the reason that he was putting out songs like that was not necessarily because he wanted to, but because his team and manager, who I know back then were quite controlling of his image, I would argue, wanted to make sure that he attained some consistent success in pop to build a fan base, which he did. He's been successful. Obviously, he's built a huge fan base. He's got a great album release coming up with potentially the biggest sales debut of the year. It could be. He could beat Drake. We're not sure yet, but he could. And he's clearly established a really, really big pop listener fan base. Broke the records on Spotify. Obviously, number one on pop radio. Can't ask for much more from a single from Bieber. But for Shawn Mendes starting early, I think releasing Stitches is a savvy move because he and his team realized that going the teen star route, the Austin Mahone route, was not going to work, and they're right. Stitches really takes a page out of Ed Sheeran actually with the whole acoustic guitar, and the kind of overall stripped back sound that it goes for. And obviously Ed Sheeran has had great success on HAC over the last 2 years. All of his singles from Multiply, the album, doing very well there. So it's just a really, really well planned out release. It was promoted, like he performed it on Ellen, I believe, and I'm sure I think he performed it somewhere else. I can't remember. But it has been promoted. It's got a nice social media push. Just in general, even though I wouldn't, there's not much to complain about if you're a Shawn Mendes fan with the way that the single has been handled. It's been handled really well.
Very well. And, even if, a lot of people want it to go number one. Obviously it's not, but for a person whose breakout single has done this well, you can't complain. And I think I just want to touch on something. I think he made a really good point with him, what he's trying to do in terms of, kind of borrowing a little bit from Ed Sheeran, who's done so well this past year with acoustic, like ballads or stripped down. And he's done well. It's not necessarily that he's copying Ed Sheeran, but he's seeing what works and what doesn't work. And with him being a brand new artist, you want to have as much success as possible to guarantee more success for, follow-up work. And again, like you said, Alex, the type of singles he was releasing prior to Stitches was not going to stick with the public. We've seen that with Austin Mahone, who's done nothing but release, I hate to say it, but the same type of singles over and over and over again, and they just were not sticking. Even like the Pitbull single that he released, or the Pitbull feature that he released, was not really sticking with the public. And we know Pitbull is a known hit maker. So now that I guess Shawn Mendes' team has looked at that and said, okay, we're not going to try to do what Austin Mahone has done because we know that's not working. We want to do something that's going to stick with the public and something that's going to resonate and generate more success for our artists. And they've done a really good job with Stitches, and I'm happy for them and can't wait to see what's going to happen with, I guess, the next single that's coming.
So very well done by Shawn Mendes. Congratulations on a breakout top five hit, number one pop radio hit. So the next thing we'll talk about, we talked about it at length last podcast, podcast before. Hello. But this time we're going to focus less on how amazingly well it's doing at the moment, and how amazingly well we think it will do in the future. Talking about how many weeks the song might end up spending at number one. And this is an interesting question. You've got the holiday season coming up. You've got Black Friday in just a week and a half. You've got Christmas coming up in approximately, 5 weeks. So this is a time where people can release and gain a lot of momentum very quickly. So I guess in the back of their mind, Adele's team has to worry about, potentially. I mean, I know it's a huge long shot after he's already done it twice this year with Drake coming in. You always have to worry about someone like him. And the bottom line is that songs can shoot up very quickly this time of year, especially if they've got a big marketing push behind them. So with that in mind, how many weeks do you think Hello is going to spend at the top of the Hot 100?
Oh man, this is kind of tricky because I mean, not necessarily tricky, but with predicting the Hot 100 is always some type of caveat. But just going by what we have, the nearest competitor that's still on the rise. I mean, Hotline Bling has peaked. I think his chances of going number one are pretty much.
I mean, I think he pronounces it Quarb, but I like with a Q, like a QU sound, like Quarb. Yeah.
Yeah, he just released his predictions for the digital sales for this week, and he's predicting Hello to do another 400K. Now, mind you, last week Hello sold 480,000 downloads. So for Hello to do another 400K in its fourth week after being released digitally is is amazing. I think this is the first song in digital history to actually stay above the 400K mark for 4 consecutive weeks.
I read
No other
something
song.
about. Oh, was that? Oh, sorry. I think I read something about Blurred Lines doing it, but that might have been non-consecutive, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was. They did. Blurred Lines actually did do a lot of consecutive weeks over 400K. I think it does have like 4 or 5 weeks. I'm not sure. But speaking from like a debut perspective, like Hello
Oh
started
yeah,
with 1 million,
yeah.
and it's still above 400K. I mean, considering that a lot of people thought this would be a front-loaded single, she's just proving you wrong. It's like no, it's not a front-loaded single because it's. I mean, it's outselling, and it's in its fourth week. It's doing more than what most pop girls high release or high profile release singles would do in their first week. So I mean, clearly Adele's single is doing something right, and it is not front loaded in the work in any way. But to make a long story short, I think this will spend at least 10 weeks at number one. I mean, it already has three right now. Yeah, three, and then next week it'll be another week, which will make four, and then I'm almost sure it's gonna rain throughout the month of December, and then it's gonna probably get a nice size boost for the digital sales, which will probably keep it at number one for another couple weeks. I'm gonna go ahead and say 10 at the very least. As far as like Mariah's record, the 16 weeks for One Sweet Day, I guess that's something we can discuss at a later date because it's really kind of early to probably discuss that right now. But yeah, 10 weeks at the very very minimum, I say for Hello.
Yeah, so just looking at it, looking at the current climate of the Hot 100, there are no real challenges for the next at least 3-4 weeks. No real challenges for at least the next 3-4 weeks, assuming that Hello continues its very slight digital sales drop, and that it continues to just absolutely demolish radio and stay steady with amazing streaming numbers. With almost 90 million YouTube views globally again this week. It's just down only several percent, which is just remarkable considering that, this, when you have a video that gets views of that magnitude, it's almost impossible not to drop a sizable percentage. And she didn't. And the Spotify streaming has been fantastic. Has never gone below 1 million a day, which, again, that's remarkable.
Wow.
Especially considering that she's a female. We know that females have struggled to attain success on Spotify so far. She was actually the very first person to get over 800,000 a day, the very first person to get over... the very first woman to score 800,000 in a day, and everything above that, obviously. That incredible 2.8 million day that I still don't understand how that happened, especially because it wasn't on a weekend. But anyway, after the next 3-4 weeks, you get towards the holiday season. And barring any viral holiday hits, which I can't imagine at this point, obviously, which I think that would be ridiculous. It's going to stay number one through the holidays into 2016. Once you get there, it gets a little dicier. You've got some album releases planned around that time. We know that Rihanna's planning to release, well, we think, because I won't say anything for certain involving this area. We think that Rihanna's planning to release sometime in very early 2016. And obviously we've got singles, future potential singles from Justin Bieber, which if they come out as strong as Sorry, could definitely pose a threat to the top in Adele's later weeks, considering that Hello will have declined by then. So actually, I would argue that Justin Bieber is the biggest threat to Adele for number one at the moment. Drake obviously is past his peak, should drop down to number 3, 2 or 3 weeks from now. That's a shame. But anyways, so assuming that Hello rules through December, that's another 5-6 weeks. And then once we get to January, it gets a little dicey, but I still think it could snag a few more weeks. And really, the number one, we can't predict. It's going to be something like, okay, so remember back in April, we kept on talking. We were talking about Uptown Funk, right? And Uptown Funk, when it was February, we didn't see any potential challenges for Uptown Funk because it's just too far in advance. You're trying to predict 8-9 weeks in advance what song's going to be number one, and you just can't. Because even if a song's gaining like crazy in its first 2 weeks, it's got plenty of time. It's got 2 months to stall before that 8th, 9th week that you're predicting for. So you're trying to predict how many weeks a song's going to go number one when it has the potential to go for 10, 12 weeks or more, and you're only in the 3rd week. The number one is likely going to be something that hasn't been released yet, or that's very unexpected, you don't see coming. With Uptown Funk, it was See You Again, which obviously was very unexpected following the release of the Furious 7 soundtrack.
Exactly.
And so I think this is a similar situation for Adele, where the number one is not going to be something that we're talking about in this podcast, or the next one even, or the next one even. So back to my week's prediction, I think at least 7 weeks, at the very bare minimum, through the first week of January. Following that, it's really hard, but my best guess, I'm going to say 11 weeks at number one. And that's sometime in early February of next year, 2016, is when she will drop down from that top spot. And another cool nugget that I'd like to throw in is that Hello reached number one on AC, the adult contemporary format, yesterday in its 23rd day on the chart, which, if you know anything about AC charts, is ridiculous. Just to put that into a little bit of perspective, the most recent AC number one, which is Fight Song by Rachel Platten before Hello, reached number one on September 9th, and it was its 160th day on the chart. And so you see most of these AC songs have their chart runs on that format, well after they've peaked on all of the main formats, pop or HAC or rhythmic, but rhythmic songs don't do well on AC anyway, so I don't know why I said that. So Fight Song obviously peaked around June, July on radio, and then it got to number one on AC in September. But now for this song, AC is actually the very first format to make it go number one, and it takes 3 weeks and 2 days, which is insane. I think it's just, that is the clearest indication of how much she transcends generations, going from young people to the kind of people who would listen to an AC station, who may very well be, 50, 60 years old. And it's just, this is what's fueling her massive success, is that this just amazing appeal. I've never seen a song go to number one on AC that fast. In fact, there are only, in the top 20 of AC right now, there are only 2 songs that have spent less than 145 days on the chart. And that's Locked Away by Our City featuring Adam Levine, and Wildest Dreams by Taylor Swift, who's also Taylor Swift, obviously a known AC staple, and Adam Levine, Maroon 5, a known AC staple. So Adele's even past that level. Just in a third of that time, she's gone number one, and that's just incredible.
Yeah, it's a remarkable, unprecedented, as you talked about. And then another thing you have to realize is that this is her first single in almost 4 years since the 21 era. And if you go back to that, all three of her the first 3 singles from that era, which were Rolling in the Deep, Someone Like You, and Set Fire to the Rain, all hit number one on that format. So obviously she became an AC staple during the 21 era, and I know Rumor Has It went top 10 on that format as well. And they kept a lot of her songs in rotation after the years since the 21 era ended. So when Hello came out, it was like, for radio programmers, it was like, finally we have something new to play from Adele, instead of, Rumor Has It, Set Fire to the Rain, Rolling in the Deep, Someone Like You, because we've been playing these songs for the past 3 years. Now we have something new to play. So not only the hype from, the lead single being released and it's being Adele, it was a lot of that, plus the fact that the radio programmers are probably able to play something new, which is why we're seeing this rapid rise to number one on the AC format, which is, again, unprecedented, and it's great.
And harkening back, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's great because it sets her up again to tap into, another demographic. I mean, she's already tapped into it with the 21 era, but to refresh them that, hey, I'm back, I have a new album out, and I'm about to snatch wigs, basically. So, and then the same thing with adult pop. She's number one there, or on her way to number one there, in a couple days with the rapid rise there. So it's very just remarkable how fast and how rapid she's able to rise on that format. And just to touch a little bit on radio while we're on the subject, I think her number one reign on the Hot 100 will be sustained to the fact that she's about to reach her peak on overall radio in a couple weeks, and there's something called the freeze on radio, which we'll probably talk about maybe next podcast or sometime.
Yeah, sometime in early December. I mean, I remember. Yeah. I mean, I was initially very confused about the freeze when I first when I was first following charts. I think we have to explain the freeze. People are confused over it every year, and obviously coming up, actually already starting on AC. next week, because after Thanksgiving, obviously, is when the freeze traditionally starts for AC.
Right.
But yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about the freeze in the coming weeks. Seeing as
Right.
it's a topic that generates a lot of confusion and a lot of alarm as well. So those are really the big storylines for the Hot 100 this week. El King, Shawn Mendes, and just the continued dominance of Adele. But looking ahead now, talked about Alessia Cara before, and we were very optimistic compared to several podcasts ago when we last talked about her, and talked about her potential to go top 10. But now, once again, that status is very up in the air, with Same Old Love armed with an AMA's performance, I believe, is right behind and could actually snag that spot ahead of here, and here could potentially end up. It's not impossible to see that song peaking at number 11, which ironically is where it is on iTunes at the moment. So what do you think about Here's current performance, especially on radio, where it might be beginning to stall just a little bit, and on the Hot 100, where it might end up at number 11, or ending up with a top 10 peak?
I think with at least with here, it's probably gonna end up stalling soon on radio. Because I've been seeing like the overall radio updates, and they're tending to slow down, and the sales are, I mean, not, I mean, they're good, but they're not great enough to sustain the momentum to carry her up the Hot 100. And to be honest with you, I'm not that sure about the streams. Well, it's doing okay on Spotify, but I'm not exactly sure how it's doing on the video.
Yeah, the video streaming is not good compared to like other contenders. Like Same Old Love is getting, I think, somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million views a day. Let me actually just check that right now because of this handy extension. Let me use this filler term to promote that extension. There's a Google Chrome extension, if you're interested in tracking YouTube views, that Corb has on his website. I can't find the link, but it was posted. I think I have it in the document somewhere. I can post it in the podcast thread. It's an extension that allows you to get the exact daily views for YouTube videos. It's a little bit retroactive. Like the most recent day you can get is 2 days before, but you can still get the exact stats. Anyway, so looking at Same Old Love's data, because we're comparing Same Old Love with here, because they're both fighting for a top 10 spot in the next few weeks. Same Old Love got 1 million views yesterday, 1,010,109 to be exact, which is not bad. That means it's on track for maybe 6-7 million views in a week, which isn't bad. It's not excellent, but it's not bad at all. But here, even though it's been gaining recently in terms of daily views, it's been gaining very well. It's still only pulling in around 300,000 views a day on the official video. And I would imagine because of the additional exposure that Same Old Love has, that it has the advantage in user-generated content as well. So only getting around 2.1 million global views every week. The video streaming is this song's major weakness. Otherwise, it's been very steady across all three metrics. The sales have been... You can't complain about the sales, especially when they're the least important metric. Being 10, 11 on sales is certainly good enough to go top 10 if you've got the radio and streaming. And it's got the radio. It's number 8 there. It's just that the video streaming is a little bit dicey. And the Spotify streaming is pretty good too. I believe it's the most recent weekly charts that I compiled. It's either just outside the top 10 or just inside. It's somewhere near that borderline top 10 range on all three metrics, but the video streaming is what's holding it back. So it needs a little bit more exposure. It is getting an AMA's pre-show performance. So we'll see what will happen with that with regards to the potential sales streaming boost it will get. But for this song to go top 10, it's going to have to make a push here within the next 1-2 weeks, because I don't think it's going to stay for a drastically long time at its peak, like a song like I Remember Talking Body, which I know is one of your favorite
Yeah.
songs.
Oh yes.
Had a quite a long run near its peak, even though it wasn't in the top 10. And I don't think we're going to see that same thing with here. Staying for a while in that 11 to 20 range. I think it's going to reach its peak, and then it's going to fall fairly steadily and fairly quickly. The question is, where is that peak? Well, is it number 11 or is it number 10? That's the big question. And we don't know. Honestly, I said in the thread earlier that it's 50-50. I continue to take that stance at the moment. It's too hard to predict these it's really the little things, small fluctuations in the sales and airplay and streaming that's going to really decide its top 10 status, and we won't be able to know really. We won't be able to get a definitive picture until next weekend as to whether it's going to go top 10 next weekend. We won't be able to get a definitive picture until the next Sunday after that and the next Saturday after that to get good pictures on whether it's going to go top 10 for those weeks. So it's hard to predict. It's really borderline. It would be tough if the song stalled at 11.
Yeah.
But I could see it happening. It's just it needs additional exposure. To me, it still feels like kind of something that it still feels very not confined, but almost it feels like its stronghold is kind of online in in the social media and not in terms of the real life exposure and getting the word out. It is getting good call out scores though, so pop listeners are responding well to it, which might help it get a little extra push that it needs, in the next weeks to come. So this is an interesting case. I'll be watching this one closely, following the numbers very closely.
Yeah, I think I have high hopes that it will scrape the top 10 at the very least. Because I think all it needs is just one major performance. Like, I know she's performing at the pre-show at the AMAs, which may not gain as many viewers as the actual show, but I mean, there are some people who are going to tune in to the pre-show nonetheless. So that may be the push that she needs to go into the top 10. But as we talked about, there are other competitors, Selena Gomez, who will be performing at the AMAs, and then not very sure how much an effect she would have, but Ariana Grande is also performing Focus at the AMAs, so I mean, some people could buy her single and she could go back in the top 10. I don't know, because she didn't really free fall as much as a lot of people expected her to this week. So she's at number somewhere between 13 and 16 this week. So and her airplay is still building. The streaming is still good. And it's rising slightly on iTunes, but she could potentially be a competitor, ironically, to here. So we'll see what happens with that. But I still have high hopes that it will go top 10, at least Alicia Cara, but not sure if it's gonna go like very, very high, like top 5 maybe, but should go top 10 in the next few weeks. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with the AMAs, and then that's something we could probably talk about definitely next week on our podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely next Monday is the AMA is just going to be a hot topic. But for this week though, the hot topic is the Hot 100 year-end chart. And yes, as we know, the Hot 100 tracking period, the Billboard chart year for 2014 to 2015 is going to end with the release of next week's Hot 100. So not this Tuesday, but the next Tuesday. Because the way this works is that the chart year goes from December 1st to November 30th, and it goes by when the charts are dated. Now, if you look at Hot 100 charts, they're not dated the same. They're not dated the same days as they're released. So the chart that came out last Tuesday was dated as being the week of November 21st, right? So this week's chart, the chart that's going to be released tomorrow, will be the chart dated the week of November 28th, which is obviously the last chart that will come out before December 1st. So thus the chart year will end with next week's chart, which means that we have to gear up for our predictions for the year-end chart, which we're going to talk about right now. Billboard traditionally releases their year-end charts in December, which is why they have that chart year December to November because they think that they're going to get more whatever. There's got to be a good reason because otherwise I don't. There's got to be a good reason somewhere in there because otherwise I don't see one to get more exposure with the year-end charts in December than in January. It's perplexing to me, but it is the way it is. So that's what we got to predict for. And right now we're going to talk about what we think is going to go on in that year-end Hot 100.
Well, I think obviously the number one goes without saying. Uptown Funk. There is no competition at all. Um, that is the year-end Hot 100 number one. It spent 14 weeks to number one. Even after the 14 weeks, it has had insane longevity after falling from the summit. So there is no debate that Uptown Funk is the number one year-end Hot 100. So advanced congratulations to Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars to their first year-end chart topper.
And the
Um,
song recently, yeah, sorry, and I was going to say, um, the song also recently achieved a milestone on pop radio to yesterday. One consecutive year inside the top 50. That is excellent. And it's actually still in the top 40. So perhaps it could spend a year at top 40 too, because it actually reached top 40 only 3 days after reaching top 50. So that would mean Wednesday, it'll celebrate its a consecutive year in the top 40, and so on. It'll be consecutive in the top 30, maybe. Or sorry, not top 30 because it's number 36 right now. But still, 365 days in a row in the top 40. Think about that. That's insane. You look at other songs that were huge during that same time period. Ed Sheeran, Thinking Out Loud, 76 on pop radio. Style, 63. Love Me Like You Do, 68. Uptown Funk, 36. It's just in another league. And it's going to win the race to the year number one handily. Yeah.
yeah, so that's very very good. And I remember that song having really good call out scores even after it started to decline on pop radio. I think it had a very slow burn rate, so a lot of people enjoy hearing it on the radio as well, which contributed a lot to its overall longevity on the Hot 100 in sales and with streaming too. So that's undoubtedly the number one for the U.S. and for the worldwide. So you can't escape it. It's number one. Like it or love it, like it or hate it. It's gonna top the chart.
Like it or love it. Who hates the song? I mean,
Yeah. That's. I mean, yeah. You know what I mean. Number two. I mean, I guess I'll go 2 through 5. I'll just predict the top five from here. I think 2 through 5 in no order. Definitely somewhere Trap Queen, Thinking Out Loud, See You Again, Sugar. I will interchange either Sugar or Blank Space with one another. But I think the top four will definitely be Uptown Funk, Thinking Out Loud, See You Again, and Trap Queen. Thinking Out Loud, again, is, I guess, relative to Uptown Funk, had a lot of longevity. It spent 8 weeks at number two. It spent a lot of time, I believe, somewhere between 18 to 20 weeks in the top 10 on the Hot 100, and had insane longevity after leaving the top 10. And this song was a huge radio hit, especially on Adult Contemporary, where I don't know if where it's still charting, but I'm pretty sure it's still probably top 10 if you count, or top 20 if you count like the all stations and recurrence. So I think that will definitely edge out at being number two on the Hot 100. And then I say See You Again or Trap Queen will probably interchange for 3 or 4. See You Again, I mean, obviously has the advantage of spending 12 weeks in number one. But you have to think about the fact that even after spending that amount of time in number one, relative to Uptown Funk, it didn't really have that much longevity in the top 10. Not sure exactly how long it spent there, but its longevity in the top 10 compared to Uptown Funk is not really that impressive. So I exchange or interchange, if I can get the word out, interchange 3 and 4 between See You Again and Trap Queen, because as we know, Trap Queen did spend about 3 to 5 weeks at number two on the Hot 100, but due to its streaming, which was huge, spent a very very long time in the top 10. 23 weeks in the top 10 on the Hot 100, which is very very impressive, especially for a song like Trap Queen. Because let's face it, a song like that in 2010 or 2011 probably would not have spent that amount of time in the top 10. But now that it's 2015 and we're in the year of streaming, that's very very impressive. So I'm kind of flipped out about 3 or 4 being either See You Again or Trap Queen. Guess we'll see in a couple weeks when the charts come out. And then number 5 for me, I think also those are interchangeable between Sugar and Blank Space, but I give Sugar the edge because it had way more longevity than Blank Space did, and the fact that Blank Space, a lot of or some of its points are going to be chopped off due to the fact that some of the points that it gained overall were in the 2014 chart period. So
Yep.
whatever points that it gained last November, which was a year ago. Congratulations, Blank Space hitting number 1 a year ago. Some of those points are going to get chopped off due to the fact that it started to smash early on. So that's why I give the edge to Sugar for that. But then you also have to realize Shut Up and Dance was also huge
Yes.
as well, and that can also interchange between somewhere between 5 and 7, which I mean is having insane longevity, and it spent its first 52 weeks on the chart as of last week, along with Uptown Funk. So that's a huge accomplishment, and we normally see that with a lot of huge alternative to pop crossovers, like a couple years ago with Pompeii, which was kind of in the same situation as Shut Up and Dance, where had this insane longevity after crossing over from alternative to pop, and then spent almost 53, 54 weeks on the Hot 100. So yeah, I guess to make things short, Uptown Funk definitely number 1. There's no debate. But I think thinking out loud will be number 2. See You Again, Trap Queen, interchange between 3 and 4. Sugar could be number 5, and then Blank Space, Shut Up and Dance could also interchange in that space as well. It just depends on how the points play out to be, basically. So those are my predictions.
And obviously, the focus when you're talking about year-end charts, focus is longevity. And
Yeah.
that's why when we were talking about, originally, many months ago in the summer, See You Again seemed like a lock for number 2 behind Uptown Funk, but Thinking Out Loud has proven very resilient, has lasted a long, long time on basically every chart. It didn't. It took until basically midsummer to drop out of the Spotify Top 50, if I'm not mistaken. I could check that with my archive, but I'm not going to. Someone else can check it for me if they'd like and prove me wrong. It's done very well on adult contemporary and HAC radio, and it only did it drop out. I think it dropped out like 2 weeks ago. So it basically spent almost the whole chart year on the Hot 100. And it had a huge peak, massive peak. Big number 1 if Uptown Funk wasn't there. So Thinking Out Loud is going to get number 2 spot for the year end. Number 3 is still probably See You Again, but like you said, Trap Queen has a chance simply because of its insane streaming. It was in the top 10 on Spotify, uninterrupted for approximately 6 months from March to September, which its on-demand streaming is very strong. In fact, it might end up as near the top of the year-end streaming songs. It should be close between Trap Queen and Uptown Funk for the year-end streaming songs crown. Perhaps Uptown Funk takes the overall streaming and Trap Queen wins on demand. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Right.
Because Uptown Funk dropped out of the top 50 a long time ago, and Trap Queen is still just hanging out. So that's kind of an extension talking about other year-end charts. But I think that "See You Again" right now is in position for number 3. It has done a good job stabilizing itself at radio. It's number 39 on overall, which isn't bad at all. It's right below Uptown Funk, actually, which is 37. The two are only separated by around 500,000 in audience. On iTunes, the song also was able to stabilize nicely near the 100 spot, which isn't horrible. I mean, it's definitely not what "Shut Up and Dance" is doing, which is number 64 at the moment. But it is done well for a song that we really expected, like, more than most other songs to hit number 1 this year, to be absolutely very front-loaded. So "See You Again," probably number 3. An outside chance for Trap Queen. If not 3, Trap Queen's definitely 4, without a doubt. And then it gets a little interesting. This 5 to 7 range, you've got the contenders in Sugar, Shut Up and Dance, and Blank Space. And right now, Sugar's looking like the number 5.
Yeah.
With the reason being, actually, not because of the radio longevity, which it did have good radio longevity. It's actually down to 51 on radio. It's actually because the video stream of Sugar has been very, very strong throughout the whole year. And as I click over to the video now, which has 866 million views, a very successful video, one of the most successful of the year, it's gaining, as of this podcast, still 2.4 million views a day. So it's racking up 16, 15 million global views a week. And obviously, if you, on average, YouTube is global compared to platforms like Spotify. So if you say, okay, well, it's pulling around 15 million streams a week here, let's do some quick math. Let's take 20% of that. You get around 3 million streams a week. That's going to help a song a ton, especially when streaming is very important. 3 million is going to help a song a ton. That's like the equivalent of if the song was number 10 on Spotify all week, which obviously isn't, but that would be incredible.
Right.
So the video streaming is what's helping Sugar to capture this number 5 spot, because although it had very good longevity on radio, and although it did sell quite well, I'm pretty sure it's number 5 or 6 in the top selling songs of the year, or maybe I think actually number 4. I can't remember the exact. I think it's number 4 in the best selling songs of the year. It's sold very well, and its video streaming is what's going to take it to number 5. I'm predicting "Shut Up and Dance" to be number 6. And "Shut Up and Dance" has just been insane. The longevity's been amazing. It's still top 10 on HAC somehow. I don't know how. It's 321 days in the chart, coming up on a year in the top 10, which would, that would be insane. It's unlikely, but you look at the chart and it doesn't seem that unrealistic, scarily. You've got "Locked Away," which is falling fast, "Photograph," which is falling in a moderate clip. So it could pass those two songs because it really isn't falling much at all. It lost 27 spins today and is losing around maybe 100, 200 a week, and it's having sometimes when it's bullets even a little bit positive. So it's kind of just staying where it is, which is remarkable, obviously, because that doesn't really happen with a song that's been in the chart for that long, and especially on a radio chart that's not AC or urban AC, I should say. So the song is still top 20 on overall radio. It was number 18 yesterday, number 20 today. 63 million audience. That's far more than any of the other songs we're talking about right now. Just for comparison, Uptown Funk 40 million, "See You Again" 39 million, Thinking Out Loud 28 million. So it's well above that. And the song's weakness is streaming, which, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, is the general weakness for alternative songs. The video's only got 139 million views. That's a stark contrast to what we just talked about with Sugar, and it's only gaining around 600,000 global views a day. So, if the streaming was strong, it would have been easily top 5. Number 4, if not number 3, if it had, good streaming. But it's going to end up settling for the number 6 spot. But its longevity shouldn't be overlooked. Number 64 after all this time on the sales chart is ridiculous, especially considering it's been out for well over a year. And the song was really it was an organic build-up, like we see with a lot of these crossovers, and it just specifically has had it's radioactive light. It really is. The sales have been excellent. It's one of the according to Hits Daily Double, in September it was one of the top 5 best-selling songs of the year. I think it still is. I know you posted the stats from UK mix that I'm going to look up now, but of course I won't find them in time to talk about Shut Up and Dance. Let's see if I can find it here. I'm actually gonna make sure I can find this. Alright, so yeah, it's the number 5 best-selling song of the year, almost 3 times platinum. It's very good. And so just number 6 is very impressive considering that it's an alternative track. We've seen on. I mean, like, for example, going back to the Pompeii example, which we've referenced several times this episode. Pompeii did not come close to number 6 on the 2014 year end, despite kind of peaking at the right time for that, peaking in the,
Right.
It was number 12, and it wasn't really going to go top 10 either on the year end. So number 6 to do far better than that is just very impressive. Moving on, Blank Space should be number 7. It dropped out of the Hot 100 quite a while ago, so it's got that disadvantage. Personally, a decision I don't agree with is that Billboard does not count chart points. You don't get year-end chart points once you've fallen out of the Hot 100. So any recurrent airplay sales and streaming you get once you're out of the Hot 100, it's null and void. Which I don't agree with, but for the purposes of these predictions, it's definitely something that we have to factor in. And for that reason, mainly, and also obviously the lack of Spotify streaming, Blank Space is going to end up at number 7. Which obviously, Taylor Swift getting another song of the year end, very impressive. She's done that many times.
Right.
Blank Space, really, it's the strong recurrent airplay that it's getting. Let's see, where is it on overall right now? Where is it? Oh, it's actually not okay, it must be, it's probably the sales and the YouTube streaming, especially the YouTube streaming. The video's over 1 billion views, which,
Huge.
yeah, huge video, and came out just over a year ago. So, Blank Space number 7. After that, it gets even more dicey. The 8 to 13 region is very messy. Let me just list off the contenders. The list off the contenders in kind of rough order. You've got Earned It by The Weeknd, which has dropped out. You've got Watch Me by Silento, which is alive and kicking, obviously. You've got Cheerleader by Omi. Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding. For the 8 to 11 spots. And then below that, you've got Can't Feel My Face, also by The Weeknd. The Hills, also by The Weeknd. And Take Me to Church by Hozier, in that 12 to 15 range. So I'll just quickly go over my predictions for each spot. So personally, first, actually, let me check and see when. Let's see. I'm checking on Earned It's chart run, so I can see what it's when it dropped out. So it dropped out. Okay. Let's see. Oh, only a few weeks ago. Okay. So Earned It only dropped out a few weeks ago. So I think with that in mind, I'm going to say Earned It barely gets number 8. It could be taken by Silento. It definitely could. But right now I'm saying Earned It goes number 8. Earned It has had very solid performance on radio, especially for a song that's not really pop oriented. The song spent a while hanging out in the top 40 pop, rhythmic, and urban AC. And it has while it was in its chart run, because obviously it's dropped out now. It had very strong recurrent streaming, only dropping out of the Spotify top 50, I believe, in August. And it's been selling pretty well as well, and obviously we know it had a high peak. It would have gone number 1 if not for See You Again in May.
Right.
So Earned It number 8, a very steady hit over the course. I remember in the early summer when the song randomly jumped up like a bunch of spots, and everyone was so upset because they had predicted it to drop out of the top 20. It just stayed at 16. It was actually in the top 20 of Billboard's Song of the Summer list, which tracks from late May to late September, early September. So yes, it had very, very good overall longevity. Video streaming, also another strength of that song. So number 8 Earned It, I think. Potentially. Possibly.
Yeah. Right. No,
Because you've got... yeah, I mean, you've got Watch Me, and Watch Me, as we all know, is pulling massive streaming numbers. Not on demand streaming, notably. The song had a good peak on it was in the top 10 on Spotify for a good bit, but it dropped out of there pretty quickly. It's the user generated content and the virality of this song is what is giving it very good longevity. The song spent 19 weeks in the top 10. That's very good. The song is also just crossed 400 million YouTube views, and considering that those are very local, considering that it's a kind of a hip hop viral hit, those are very local to the United States.
Right.
Very good streaming numbers for Watch Me. It's been near the top of streaming songs for the last 6 months or so. Ever since it started blowing up in May, it's been in the top 5, top 10 of streaming songs. And that's what's going to take it to number 9. The radio support was always fairly minimal, especially coming from pop, which didn't support it much. It did go top 3 on Rhythmic, and it did go top 10 on Urban, so there was some radio support, but obviously streaming pretty much the reason I mean, if without streaming, it would probably not even be in the top 20 of the year end.
Obviously, yeah.
If streaming was even, weighted back to its 2013 levels, it would still probably be out of the top 20. So yeah, stream massive. Number 9, Watch Me. At the moment, who knows, that could change, but that's what I got. Number 10 is probably going to be Cheerleader by Omi, considering that Love Me Like You Do dropped out of the Hot 100 a while ago. Cheerleader has not, so it's been accumulating chart points. Cheerleader, to my dismay, and probably yours as well,
Of course.
has had solid longevity on pop radio, where it's 27. That's for a little comparison. 27 on pop radio. It's spent 198 days on the chart, so around 6 months, and still in the top 30. Pretty good longevity, I must say. And the song is top 50 on overall radio still, and it had fairly strong streaming numbers throughout the summer. And it looks like it's going to be number 10, and Love Me Like You Do will take that 11th spot. And beyond that, it's very hard to predict, considering that The Hills is still very strong. It could leapfrog a spot. I think it speaks to the fact that it totally overshadowed Can't Feel My Face, that it's either going to end up finishing very close or even ahead of Can't Feel My Face in the year end. So it totally overshadowed it.
Yeah,
again,
I was
interesting.
surprised at that.
Yeah, again, interesting to see how this organic hit, if you will, was able to outshine the song that was pushed as his pop breakout. So that's a little bit of irony there. So to recap, Uptown Funk at 1, Thinking Out Loud at 2, See You Again at 3. Probably could be Trap Queen, but probably See You Again at 3. Trap Queen at 4, Sugar at 5, Shut Up and Dance at 6, Blank Space at 7, Earned It or Watch Me at number 8, and then obviously number 9, Earned It or Watch Me. Probably Cheerleader at 10, and then probably Love Me Like You Do at 11. Below that, you could have Can't Feel My Face, The Hills, Take Me to Church, and even Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. All battling it out in that 12 to 15 range.
Right.
And other songs that should also make the top 20. I mentioned it briefly talking about Cheerleader. Jason Derulo's Want to Want Me has an excellent radio longevity. It should make the top 20, fueled by that. Bad Blood's video stream should get it into the top 20, and then additionally, we also have Where Are You Now by Skrillex, Diplo, Justin Bieber, which has had very good streaming longevity. That should get it into the top 20 as well. And Meghan Trainor, Lips Are Moving, although it peaked early, and it should also make the top 20. In no particular order, because I don't have the data to be able to pick those. So that's what we've got for the year end. Those are going to be released in just a couple weeks, probably 3-4 weeks until the year ends come out.
Yep.
And the chart year ends with next week's chart. So stay tuned for those. The full scoop on the year end charts. I'm sure when they come out, we'll break them down. We'll talk about why each song landed at which spot. But that's those are our predictions. and thus that concludes the segment. We don't really have a Will It Go Top 10 this podcast. I was struggling to come up with songs to talk about, besides here, which we already kind of covered. So yeah, we need some more suggestions. Give us some long shot, give us some long shot songs that you think even a small chance at going top 10. We will still want to talk about it. So make sure to get those in for next week in the thread. And yeah, do we have anything else to talk about? I think we did have one more.
I think we covered everything from our. Oh, I guess we can just touch on most forgotten top 10 hits of the year.
Oh yes, that was a fun one. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna forget that one. Get it? Because it's most forgettable top 10 hits, and I don't want to forget it. Okay. Yeah. What do you think are the most forgettable top 10 hits of the year?
Oh well, let's see. Most forgettable top 10 hits. I mean, it's hard for me to answer this question because I follow charts, but if I had to say what the most forgettable top 10 hits of the year are, one of them, obviously, to me, would be the Sam Smith and John Legend collab, Lay Me Down. Only because, one, it was only top 10 for a week, and that was due to the fact that it was released as a charity single for Red Nose Day back in April. And besides that, once that first week was done, it tumbled in sales, and it wasn't really the radio hit that it was when you stack that up against Stay With Me and I'm Not the Only One. So it kind of pales in comparison with its previous two singles. So I'm definitely going to have to say Lay Me Down was one of the most forgotten top 10 hits of the year. Just going based on facts.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, go ahead.
Another one, it's kind of hard to say. I guess I would say probably, and this is just kind of just looking at a quick glimpse of things that hit the top 10 this year. Maybe, you know what? I think I'm just stop there. I'm gonna let you go, and I'm just look at this list a little bit more. But definitely, "Lay Me Down" by Sam Smith.
Yeah, "Lay Me Down" for sure. I picked three, and "Lay Me Down" was the first one. That immediately came to my mind. And just a side note, I really wish that "I Don't Mind" by Usher had hit top 10 for like a week, because that would have definitely won if it had gone top 10 for a week. That I haven't heard that song since like May, so definitely that would have won if it had hit the top 10. Alas, it was blocked at 11. But yeah, okay. So the second song I picked was Pitbull featuring Neo with "Time of Our Lives," which had a number 9 peak. The song has had very poor longevity kind of everywhere. It's number 64 on Rhythmic Radio, which isn't especially great. There are some songs, even like a song like, say, GDFR or Truffle Butter, hits of similar size on Rhythmic Radio, because it did go number 1 there, that are higher on that chart. Like Somebody by Natalie LaRose is much higher on that chart.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of songs that did better. Pop radio, basically, totally forgotten. Not totally, but 56 on that chart. And radio is really his stronghold now that he's not pulling strong sales numbers anymore, because not many people are pulling strong sales numbers anymore. And so, I guess kind of average to decent longevity on radio. And then just obviously on sales, just totally plummeted after April. And then in terms of streaming, it never did well on Spotify at all. Never got any momentum going. The video streaming was bad. Mostly, I think, except for maybe if it's... Let me look up how many views it has. It's got... 127 million. And that's probably very global, considering, it's... It's Pitbull, and the views have not been. Actually, the views were never above 1 million a day, but they have not even been above 500 since before summer. So very forgotten. And then my third pick after Lay Me Down and Time of Our Lives for a forgotten top 10, and it's an ironic pick. Um, and considering that the song actually did quite well on one metric is "Nasty Freestyle" by T Wayne,
Yeah.
which had a good. Actually, I was calculating its domestic streams the other day because with my archive I can do that. I can add the domestic streams of a song during its chart run. And I was doing that for Nasty Freestyle. I noticed it actually had a very good chart run. It was on the chart for around 5 months, which is pretty good for considering it was like a quick viral Vine thing. And it peaked at number 3 there. So it actually had a very good run on Spotify, but it received kind of just moderate top 20 radio support on Rhythmic and Urban, and it really didn't do anything in sales. The song, I haven't heard it in several months, and it's kind of one of those, quick. Like I said, it was a quick hit because it's kind of like all it is really. It's a 2-minute, one verse song that it's very much a fad, and definitely not. And people often compare Nasty Freestyle with Watch Me. It's like no, not at all. Watch Me is a cultural phenomenon. You've got Matt Damon and Hillary Clinton doing it on Ellen, and then with Nasty Freestyle, you've got T Wayne walking around in an abandoned parking lot, and that's the whole music video. So yeah, it's kind of a stark contrast. So those are my picks for the most forgotten top 10 hits of the year: "Lay Me Down," "Time of Her Lives," "Nasty Freestyle." Obviously, I could have talked. There are others I could have referenced. I could have referenced "Love Me Harder." I could have referenced "Centuries." Those are kind of my honorable mentions. Those two, which "Love Me Harder," as we know, had poor sales longevity and didn't really has not had longevity outside of radio. And "Centuries" obviously was HAC driven and sales driven. And obviously, since our chart, since the Hot 100 is focused on streaming and pop, as a hit that's HAC and sales driven is pretty easily forgotten, especially when it only scraped top 10 for a week, 2 weeks. So yeah, those are my most forgotten top 10 hits of the year.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna agree with Nasty Freestyle. I mean, I forgot it that I forgot to mention it, so that's probably why it probably is one of the most forgotten top 10 hits of the year. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. So addition to Nasty Freestyle and Lay Me Down, I'm gonna say the third one for me would probably be, I think you mentioned it, Centuries, which was kind of it was a building hit, but it was kind of one of those hits where it just came and went. I mean, I know it's Fallout Boy and they're known for their longevity, but I just feel like that it went so much under the radar that it just did not get noticed. And I think it went top 10 for like a week or two, and then after that it just kind of fizzled out and faded to the background. But yeah, I think it just kind of got caught up in a lot of the hits that we had this year in the top 10, and I think that's probably like one of the most forgotten hits of the year. I mean, I could be subjective and say things that I don't like Fight Song, but as much as I hate to admit it, that song will be remembered for 2015, even though a lot of people hate it, some people love it, but I think that song will definitely be remembered as one of the big hits of 2015, and it actually sold pretty well. I think it's like over 2.2 million copies or something like that, which I mean in this climate is
Yep,
pretty damn good.
2.25.
Yeah, so that I mean it's pretty damn good, and she had promoted it with the Ford commercial, and then she was on tour. Or I guess Taylor Swift invited her to the 1989 tour, and she performed there. So she got a lot of publicity. So yeah, it's definitely a remembered hit. I wouldn't call it forgotten, but if I could forget it, I would forget it. Just want to put that out there. But this is another time or day.
Yeah. So that about wraps it up for today's podcast. Obviously, for the next one, episode 10, we'll be in the double digits, and we'll hopefully have hair back. Hopefully next Monday.
Come on.
get it in before Thanksgiving. Um, and if you have any suggestions for future segments, I know we didn't have a Will It Go Top 10 today, so future songs for that, post them in the thread, which could always use some activity. And until episode 10, then, take care.
All right. Holler.
All right, stop recording.